On May 24, 2006, 4 members of the Jewish-Palestinian Living Room Dialogue came to a Washington High School history class in Fremont, California. Maria Stotti's class spends several weeks each school year focusing on Israeli-Palestinian issues. She invited dialogue participants to help the students relate more personally to their curriculum and to each other.
I wanted this group to come to my classroom and talk to my kids, because when they receive this information from their textbooks or from their teacher, it's still not real for them. But when you come here and you bring people who went through this experience, I think it just makes they understand it better. It makes more realistic for them, and I think they use not only their brains to comprehend the situation, but also they have an emotional response to the situation. Teenagers have a very acute sense of fairness, and I think it's great for them to see that maybe at some level fairness exists. Today, as I promised, we have a dialogue group in our classroom, and they will present their ideas and their new approach, how to communicate in the times of conflict. And I want to introduce them briefly. We'll have Libyan Len Traubman, who co-founded the 13-year-old Jewish-Palestinian Living Room Dialogue Group. With face-to-face listening and relationship building, they initiate concrete projects that help people and invigorate the public peace process here and overseas.
We have a lot of things that we'd like to communicate to you today and to provide you with your own personal experience that we've found really, really meaningful in our lives. As Maria said in the introduction, we're part of a Jewish-Palestinian Living Room Dialogue Group, and we formed the group some almost 14 years ago, believing that an enemy is someone whose story you have not heard. And we think that today we're living in an age where there's a lot of enemies being poised out there, and there are a lot of people who have stereotypes about each other, and it's not just about the Middle East, it's not just about Arabs and Jews, it's about all of us. We're all in this together, and we all have a lot to learn about each other. And the dialogue is something very specific. I'm going to say first what the dialogue is not. Dialogue is not discussion where you ping-pong ideas back and forth, waiting to say what you want to say, not listening very well to what the other person has to say. And it's not really conversation, which is fun, but we say that conversation is more social. It's something you might do at a party where you're chit-chatting about all the events of the day. And we say it's definitely not debate, because we feel that debate is where you are looking for a winner and a loser. Or when you leave a debate, you often say, well, did your guy win? Did your girl win? And so what we're looking for is a win-win. We're talking about coming out with new ideas, new ways of thinking that will really be for all peoples equally. And so we happen to focus on the Jewish-Palestinian relationship because we feel like the Middle East is a very hot and troubled place, and it's a model. And we believe that if we can demonstrate how coming together in face-to-face relationship building can change the nature of what is happening over there, this same model can be applied anywhere else in the world, and we know that there are numerous conflicts going on. This is not the only place. But not being able to take on the whole world, we're trying to take on the Middle East, which is a huge, huge project itself, just because it's very complicated and very deep and intense.
I was born in 1939, so I lived through World War II, and all through my youth, when I was your age, what we were being taught, because we were so afraid of the Soviet Union and of nuclear catastrophe, we were actually taught and trained in school to dive underneath our desks, because we felt that would somehow save us. And now your teacher has come from a place, from Russia, from the former Soviet Union, which I was taught we would never ever in my lifetime be able to have a relationship with. I was taught we would always be at war and there was no way we would ever have a different kind of world beyond war. This can be a very different world where we all live as one and cooperating in our fantastic diversity. So this is the public peace process. This is citizens doing what governments cannot do. Governments write treaties and enforce treaties, and citizens do what governments cannot, and that is building human relationships. And so you will get a chance to meet today and listen to the stories of two people who used to be enemies and have learned to listen in a new way. Albert Einstein said that we cannot solve today's problems with the same kind of thinking that produced them. We cannot solve today's problems with the same kind of thinking that produced them. So this is a whole new way of thinking, a whole new way of relating, which you will actually get to do yourselves.
Each of us comes into the room with our own very important life experience, and we all have a frame of reference about the way things are or the way we would like them to be. But when you look around the room, you can see that there are as many frames of references and life experience as there are those of you sitting here. And so the goal is to acknowledge that I don't have all the answers. And it's by sharing and being open with each other through the dialogue and through listening as we've never listened before, through listening compassionately to another person, that we can learn more about those other frames of reference, those other ideas, and then therefore expand our own and be richer for it. And by doing that, we're going to be much better able to solve the world's problems because we're going to understand the needs that we all have and share together.
Listening is one of the great acts of love, and it can do small miracles and sometimes big miracles. We're talking about power. So please let us introduce two people who are intending to live that life that we're talking about. Libby, you want to begin?
Okay, I'm going to introduce Elias Botto. Elias Botto was born in Jerusalem, Palestine. In late 1947, due to increasing violence in the region, his family moved to Bethlehem in the West Bank. In 1954, he immigrated to America. Later, Elias owned and directed daily operations for San Francisco's Grand B garment manufacturing and contracting, serving Esprit, Levi Strauss, and other smaller manufacturers nationwide. He is active in the charitable work of the Bethlehem Association and of U.S. OMAN, the United States Organization for Medical and Educational Needs, providing needed humanitarian services to people in the Middle East.
Dr. Miriam Zimmerman recently retired as director of the communication program at Notre Dame de Namur University in Belmont. She is co-founder of Divorce Mediation Group on the San Francisco Peninsula and has been a volunteer mediator for the Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center. Miriam is a graduate of the International School for Holocaust Educators at Yad Vashem, Jerusalem. She writes a column, One Woman's Voice, for the National Jewish Post and Opinion on themes of religion, women, the Holocaust, and most recently about Jewish-Palestinian relationships.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting us. I would like to say, if I stayed an enemy of Libby and Len and Miriam, I wouldn't be here today. But I chose the other path. I chose the harder path of trying to make peace and understand my enemy, where in my case, that enemy became a friend, a very, very close and dear friend. I was born in 1932 in Jerusalem, and in 1947, when the conflict between Palestinians and Jews at that time started, and the British mandate who used to rule us at that, govern us at that time, we were 8 in the family, and my parents found it fit that we should move the family and go to stay with some relatives in Bethlehem. So my mother packed some of our suitcases, and we went to Bethlehem, assuming we would be spending a couple of weeks, almost Christmas vacation. Well, those couple of weeks extended 56, 57 years till now, we were never able to go back. My parents passed away here in the United States. They came to the United States in 1966. By the way, I came into the United States in 1954. And I loved what I saw about the United States, and I tried my best to help the rest of the family, my sisters, 6 of them, my brother and my parents, to come to the United States. I'll never forget when my father was staying with me, because it's our tradition, in the Middle Eastern tradition, that if you have your parents and you get married, even then, you'll have your parents stay with you until death do us part, not only between spouses, but even with family. And so it happened with my parents, and my father was bedridden. And I remember playing a song, a patriotic song. It's called "We Shall Return." And when the crescendo, the end of the song comes in, it says, "We shall return, we shall return." I will blast the hi-fi and start singing with it. And as I was doing that, I went into my father's bedroom. And there he was, sitting in bed with his hands up in the sky and tears down his face, saying, "Yes, God, we shall return." That poor man, he never was able to go back to the land that he loved so much. For Middle Easterns, for Arabs at large, land, it means a lot. It's the identity. That's how we identify ourselves, with the soil. Lucky for me, one of my brother-in-laws, I have 6 of them, as I said, he was a Polish man. He went back home to visit the Holy Land. And before coming back, he got some soil from the Holy Land. And I never forget it when my father passed away in his funeral. And he asked, he said, "Elias, I have some soil from the Holy Land, and your father was never able to be buried there. What do you say if I can give you a handful and put it under his pillow in his coffin?" And for him, that was as close as he was able to get to his homeland in his death. He was buried here in San Francisco. I'm saying this not to make anybody feel bad or feel guilty. It's just we are all human beings. I, for one, recognize the fact that Israel is here to stay. And I hope that the time will come when the Israelis and the rest of the world would recognize that the Palestinians are here to stay. And if I'm to help Israel to live securely, I would say Israel and America and the rest of the world has to look with a compassionate eye and feeling towards the Palestinians, and to look at them as human rights, as human beings. You see, before we subdivide ourselves into Christian, Muslims, and Jews, it so happened I'm a Christian. I was brought up as a Christian. We all believe in one God, and that's the common denominator that unites us, all 3 of us, the 3 religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Mohammedanism, Islam. If we could consider ourselves to be of the human race, and we all believe in the oneness of God, that will bring us closer to look at each other on an equal level. Unfortunately, the conflict over there doesn't allow to the Palestinians or the Israelis to look at each other on an equal level. Until they become and they see each other as equal, then just like I do now between the Trabmans and Miriam, we are equals. We love each other as equal. I'm not subservient to them or they're subservient to me. We look at each other, number one, as a human being. We are blessed to come and to belong to that part of the world, which we call it the Holy Land. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for inviting us here today. My name is Miriam Zimmerman, and I'd like to share briefly with you what brought me to the dialogue group. And it started about 8 years ago when I was studying about the Holocaust in Jerusalem. And I was part of a Catholic group because I teach a course on the Holocaust at a Catholic university. I was the only Jew. And because it was run by the nuns and there was a priest and it was a fairly religious group, we went to all the Christian sites, which I'd never seen as a Jew. And as part of that experience, I realized that I didn't understand Israel. I had no idea there were so many monasteries and so many churches in Israel, because when you're with the Jewish group, you go right by these high walls and never learn what's there. So one of the pivotal events that summer was doing the Stations of the Cross in the old city of Jerusalem. And I don't believe religion should be a spectator sport, but obviously as a Jew I didn't participate in the singing of the prayers, or the tears that I might have shed were more because I was so moved by how the very devout Christians among us were experiencing the Stations of the Cross. But as I looked around and observed, I realized we were in the Muslim quarter in much of this pilgrimage. And as I looked around, I saw how we truly are three different religions, but we all believe in one God. And since I didn't know the Christian Israel, I also didn't know the Muslim Israel. And I was determined to really find out the totality. So when I came back, I found the Jewish-Palestinian group, which has Muslims, Catholics, Jews, Christians, others, and it was a wonderful, wonderful learning experience. And as part of that experience, I really learned to listen. And this is a bit humbling because I'm a college professor of communication, and I've even taught listening skills as part of every course I've ever taught because it's so important. But let me tell you, I didn't understand the depth, I didn't understand the power of truly opening oneself up and hearing one another's story until I reached the dialogue group. The Holocaust teaches that for evil to triumph, all it takes is for good people to do nothing. And that's a paraphrase of the Irish orator Edmund Burke. And we're all good people here. Learning to listen in the deep way that we've learned to listen is incumbent on every student, every adult. So when I tell you that I'm a Holocaust Jew, my father was born in Germany. I know my Palestinian friends have heard it before, and I'm a little defensive. But it has motivated me to hear your story and to listen through your ears. And so, Elias, what I want to say now is that I think I've been able to do that. I can't put the Holocaust aside. It's part of my identity. But on the other side of that, I've been motivated to seek out and listen and hear. Not to do that is not an option. So I'd like to end that my father also died at home. The last thing in the world he wanted to do was to go back to Germany. So it's such a difference, but I can still hear the poignancy of your story. I think that's all I want to say right now.
Miriam, as you were telling your story, going to Jerusalem and watching the Catholics doing the Station of the Cross, I was there with you. Because many, many times in my life, I did those Station of the Cross in the streets. And even though you were a stranger to what was happening over there, but yet I think you were enjoying, as a Jew, watching what the Holy Land means to you as well as to the Christian and to the Muslim as well. I do appreciate the fact that the Holocaust, as negative as it was, a tragedy that is, to the human race in general and to the Jewish people in particular, that you were part of it and you were affected by it, and to the point that you took it on yourself to pursue it and to be able to teach it in school and to teach communication and understanding. And going to Israel, to the Holy Land, to seek the roots of your background. You were seeking my roots as well. The tears that you would shed, they're the same tears like I would over the Holy Land. You said it rightly, that we are all one. We believe in the same God, the same religion, even though we take different paths, but deep inside, we are all the same. We do look at each other the same as a human beings. Maybe our politics, they differ, but we are the same. I hope I always will be with you, and I'll always be your friend, and I will always hear your story, because your story is my story as well as a human being. Thank you for relaying it.
When I visualized your dad, so many thousands of miles away from his homeland, and that you were taking care of him, even though you'd been here since 1954 and had been very successful in business and raised a beautiful family, and then your dad was here also, I couldn't help realize how important family is to both of our peoples. And we have so much in common, that from the father to the son, from the mother to the daughter, from parents to children. And that your father wanted so much to go to the land that is so important to all of our faiths, and that he was not able to do this. And he was not able to do this because of the state of Israel that was really born out of the seeds of the Holocaust, the destruction. It's like, I don't understand why this is happening so that we have to be enemies. And the fact that both of us can transcend all of this history of hatred, of expulsion, of hunger, of denial of our spirituality, and still come together as two people. To me, that gives me hope. When you were talking about the pain of your father, and I thought about the pain of my father having gone through the Holocaust, and it really hit me. It's the same pain. And I don't know if I've ever told you how sorry I am that that has happened to your father, maybe because of my father's pain.
You did, thank you. We're all human beings, and no one person can monopolize pain. As human beings, regardless black, white, green, yellow, we all feel it the same way. We're human beings, number one.
If, as I listened to your story, I can convey to you how sorry and my empathy, and that I wish so much that it hadn't happened this way. That's looking back. Looking forward, we have to come up with new models, and we have to come up with models that don't involve the expulsions and the annihilation that both of our parents experienced. Maybe we have some tickets right here, I'm hoping. And the religious aspect is so important. In Hebrew, the watchword of the Jewish faith is the Shema. Shema means hear, and so as I hear you, I truly think that we become one. And you said it, you said, your story is my story. And I certainly hear your story. My story is in your story, with the expulsion of your people, and how the land is so important. And Jerusalem is so important. And we have to learn how to share it.
Today you have an opportunity to have a whole new experience. You will learn a new way of relating, and you can actually live this life here in school starting today. So here's what we'd like to do now. You get your chance. And for a half hour, which is a very short time, it'll go like that. You will get to relate to one another. And we will give you that opportunity, and you are being given that time. So you will be in pairs. And if you would please select a person in the room, and ideally somebody you don't know, and maybe somebody you have trouble with. But you're going to relate in a very different way. And it'll seem a little scary at first, but it's not. I promise you it's not. Now, the first 15 minutes of that, one person, one of you will tell your story. You can go way back. You can talk about your ancestors. You can talk about where they came from to the land. You can start when you were born. You can start anywhere you want. But tell the other person your story. And you will have 15 minutes to do that. And the listener will only listen. No interruptions. No, oh, that reminds me of my little experience or big experience. You will only listen with no interruptions for 15 minutes. The first 10 minutes will be only listening, but the last 5 minutes of that 15 minutes, the listener will ask a few questions, like explore the storyteller. That seemed to mean a lot to you. Tell me more about that. Or this interested me. Can you say a little bit more about that part of your life? And you don't have to worry about the watch, because we'll tell you about the time, and you will have a chance to hear each other and be heard like you were never heard before, and be able to tell your story uninterrupted. And so please pick a person now and pair up. Move out into the room if you need to. Move on the couches. And one person decide to be the storyteller to begin with.
Let's go. I don't know.
The storyteller, please begin.
That's how I got racist at first, towards like, you know, like Mexican black and white people.
My dad's side of the family, my grandma was the one who got shipped to the United States, and she had to like live and work here for almost like 10 years with her relatives, and she worked like in San Francisco as a security guard. And after finally finished citizenship, she got it, and then she sponsored the rest of my family. Like, and soon my uncles, my dad, everyone started to come here, and that's basically how we got here.
I married this guy.
Yeah, my stepdad.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were already here. You were like how
Yeah,
old? You were like 10.
Well, when they first met, I was 2.
And they got married like 8 years later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So did they have any kids?
Who?
Your brother.
My brother and sister. 2 of them.
So they're your stepbrothers. And
Kind
sister.
of, yeah.
My grandparents, they immigrate to Hong Kong, and then, my grandfather, that's what I heard from my parents, went back to China to fight communists.
I guess I've learned to just that we have to also listen to their side, and just like to explore other religions too. But I guess just for myself, like how you said that it's hard to find someone in this modern world who's just so religious. I guess that surprises me too, because I don't know. I was brought up in like a Christian family, and God is my life, and
finish it. Their houses are so worn down, and they depend, literally their life depends on their land, and because they have so many just fields and acres and hills full of grapes or olives and grapes, and that's like the only way they can live. So we got to see all that, and I was able to see my family's land, which was so amazing, just like looking over the hills and realizing that that was all ours.
Do you still have family? You have a lot of family here too?
I have a lot of family here, Australia, Africa, India, England, Canada.
Have you ever had family in like Africa or England or anything?
I might go to Africa summer.
After all the trips I've had to India, I feel that I can appreciate my parents' past and the life they had to live before they came here, without all the things that we're used to today, like TV, radio, computers and stuff. Yeah, it was like very different back then. So because of my parents, I appreciate that more.
How religious are you? Like you said before, you're a Catholic. What does your faith mean to you? How close is it?
It means a lot because my dad takes me to church.
Then I met my best friend Scott and my other friends.
I don't even know where to start right now because actually I'm really touched by her story, and I just never really realized like how much we actually have in common. And I guess just hearing her story about how her grandmother was actually related to royalty, and that just having everything taken away from them by like the communists, it was just really like heartbreaking, because if that hadn't happened, then she would still be having like a really good life. And just knowing that what her ancestors actually worked for was just taken away from them so easily, it was just really heartbreaking. And I guess just now, like, I feel really ashamed of myself, because I know in the past, actually, I've been kind of mean to her, and actually that's why I went and became her partner. And I guess just through this experience, I've learned so much that how we have to just accept each other and just learn to like love one another.
I'm a Muslim Palestinian, and my partner was Jewish, so we thought that we'd kind of clash in this, but we actually learned that like both our families have gone through a lot of the same stuff, and we've had a lot of the same experiences, and both of us really want the same things for our people. We both, disagree with what some people are doing, and we want peace, and we kind of have the same ideas about like ways to stop it, and we really agree with, we disagree with the things going on in the country, and we both feel that, the same things need to be done. We need to find something different to do this, and we have the same ideas about changing it. And I want to thank her for sharing her story about her family and the struggles they went through, because I learned that like we kind of have the same struggles, and I think we have more in common than I thought.
I think when you set aside time to really talk to someone and really get to know them, we're all the same, every single one of us here. It's just like we all have that same connection within us, and we just need time to set aside and find that out, I guess. And this was really wonderful.
From what the experience just now, I've learned more about his past and how his past relates to somewhat my present right now, how hard both of our lives might be going through from his past and my present. But in the end, which path you walk down, both of it comes to the same end. And this experience was really great, and it was awesome.
We might not exactly look alike, but the things that we're going through right now are really similar. Our parents are kind of protective, and stuff like that happens, and that's what we talked about today. And I learned that, like, me and Irene are actually pretty similar and stuff like that.
I think too often we look at other people and call them our friends, but we don't understand where they've come from, what background they have, and then just like, oh yeah, you're my friend. But what is it really that you know about that person besides everyday school stuff that you do with that person? So I was glad that I had the opportunity to speak with Allie and learn about her background, because I've never really known that about her. And I've been friends with her for about like 4 years now. So yeah, thanks.
Basically, the whole experience of the dialogue has taught me how it's not just about Palestinians and Jews or Christianity and Hinduism. In the end, it's more about the human relation, the human experience between two people. And talking to Mark right here, I've just learned about more stuff that I would have not gotten from an informal conversation with him. This type of dialogue really enlightened me about different kinds of people in the world, and how future citizens like himself, like future citizens of this world, people who are going to make up the majority of the world and bring us into a new era of success. And this kind of dialogue promoted me to think in an extraordinary way, to know that how they're doing. And so that's what I've learned, and I think this is a very good experience, and a little more and more dialogues must be created in this world.
The things that I saw here today and how well people talk to each other made me realize that we definitely need to have more conversation and get to know our classmates better. And it shouldn't be just one thing during one period and in front of cameras. It should be it should be a progress. And maybe something that we should do is start a dialogue in our school and make it a continuous thing. And who in this group of people thinks that they might like to be in a club that's dialogue, that's talking to people? Please raise your hands. All right, awesome.
And this is how change begins, with an individual, with a small group of individuals, with a good spirit, saying yes and trying something new. So, thank you. Spasiba. Shukran. Toda. Thank you. Salamat. Sheshe.
I wanted to just echo what Len said and just say that I've been really touched today by your willingness to participate in this, and I realize that it's not easy. In the beginning you feel sort of silly and self-conscious, and you might think you don't have a story or anything to say, but you do. You all have amazing stories, and you have amazing futures ahead of you. And I think the idea of having a dialogue club is fantastic. We've often thought that if students could begin their school year by having these one-on-one dialogues and make it a process so that you do it with several people and you kind of keep it going, you would have a much better experience in school, because you would feel so at one and connected to the people that you might think you were not otherwise. So if you can pursue the dialogue club idea and really have people engage in these deeper conversations more often, I think it would just do amazing things for this school and the community at large. And the rippling effects, who knows, would be unstoppable. So go for it, and thank you so much.
So the next time you see a problem on campus, the next time you see a problem in the world, try not to take sides. Try just to take both people by the hand and say, come, sit down, tell me your story. It's a beginning.
I hope that we will remember this experience, and when we have problems, you can use this dialogue not only between your friends, between your classmates, but also you can apply it to relationship with your teachers. And maybe we can talk and discuss, and then we will be friends. Well, anyway, yes, we're already friends, but we'll be even more friends. Okay, anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate that you came to our class and that you talk to our students. And I know for sure that it will help us to build a better community. Thank you. I think that's a great experience, and especially as an educator, I go through this experience when we have, for example, California content standards in history, and we have to cover these content standards. We have to give this information, this knowledge to our students, and sometimes we don't have time to stop and think about some events. We don't have time to reflect on events. We don't have time when we just sit down and talk about different events and what we think about them. So I think that's an opportunity for them to have this break from this learning about history, about specific facts from history. It's time for them to be more reflective, to be more thoughtful, and to be more emotional. This is very important. And see how history can relate, not only it's an academic discipline, but how it can relate to their life. And I think it's very, very valuable, and I hope it will not be just one-time thing. I hope we can continue with it. And as one of the students said, Katya, we can establish a club and we can invite people, maybe representatives from other regions, to talk to our students, and we can continue this conversation, this wonderful dialogue that we started today.